Good morning, children of all ages. I want to talk to you today about a book that I used at school. And it's kind of a neat book, and there's a small book for kids that are 5 and 6 years old, and then there are chapter books for children that are up to 10 or 11 years old. And it's called Flat Stanley. Now that's kind of a strange name, isn't it? Well, Stanley was a normal boy. Stanley Landchop lived with his mother, father, and little brother Arthur. And one night, in the middle of the night, a great big heavy bulletin board that was over Stanley's bed fell on him. And he didn't even realize it until he woke up in the morning and discovered he was flat. The bulletin board had flattened him. He was 4 feet tall, 1 foot wide, and a ½ inch thick. That's Flat Stanley. Now there are advantages to being flat. You can slide under doors and through cracks in walls and through little tiny openings in windows, and you can go lots of places. And Stanley did, and there is a whole series of books about Flat Stanley and his adventures. He could mail himself. He put himself in an envelope and mailed himself all over the world. And those are some of Flat Stanley's adventures. He visited all 7 continents. His parents first started it by folding him up, putting him in an envelope, and mailing him to his best friend in California who had moved, because Stanley lived in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Flat Stanley and what I did with a Flat Stanley book. I brought one Flat Stanley book. It's called Flat Stanley and the Bees. And like I said, there are lots of them, but Flat Stanley was playing hide and seek with his friends while the wonderful, delicious honey buns that his mother had made for breakfast were cooling in the kitchen. And they were playing hide and seek outside, and all of a sudden they heard a squeal from one of the friends. And what they found was he was hiding behind a tree where there were lots of bees living. And the bees swarmed around him, and he was standing perfectly still because he didn't dare move. Well, Flat Stanley folded himself up. Flat Stanley folded himself up, and his friends grabbed his feet and fanned with him. And that made the bees go away, but not very far away. So they started to run towards the house to get away from the bees. And they ran faster and faster, and the bees swarmed faster and faster, because bees do that. Bees are really good at swarming. They came to a slip and slide. Stanley flattened himself out, and everybody jumped on, and they slid down the slip and slide. The bees followed. They finally ran into the house and slammed the door behind them, but the bees got in too. And they realized there were no more bees. And they looked, and the bees were all stuck to the honey buns, because bees like honey. Now that's Flat Stanley and the Bees. But let me tell you what I used to do with the Flat Stanley books. And it's something I would like some of you people to do too. I used to have journals for my students of all ages, but my journals were different. There's a space on top and a space at the bottom. And I would ask them to write their own Flat Stanley stories. Draw a picture of what's happening at the top and write the story on the bottom. And with the older kids, I wanted them to write more than one page, because there's lots of pages in this. And they could write stories about Flat Stanley. And you could too. You could write stories. There's a lot of things going around this week about being Kindness Week. And you could write a story about how you make yourself flat. You could be a Flat Lisa, or a Flat Judy, or a Flat Dave, or Flat Stanley. I used to make myself a flat teacher. And tell the stories of what I would do. And then you could write your own story about things that you would do, or things you could do, or things you are doing that's kindness to people. And you can make yourself your own flat Stanley, flat person, and write a story. Doesn't have to be in a book like this, but it could be in a book like this, or you can make your own book up with just plain paper and draw a picture and write about the acts of kindness that you're doing and the places that you're going and how you can get there being flat. And you can get under doors, you can get into crevices, you could mail yourself someplace. You can go to visit your grandparents in the mail. And how surprised they'd be when they opened the letter and found you. So, that's the story of Flat Stanley, and that's how you can be your own Flat Stanley. I hope you enjoy it and have a great week. Bye.